Hello, everybody, and welcome.
Hello.
We'll ask all attendees to mute their microphones. In fact, I had hoped to have done that for you, so apologies there. That should work. That should work now. I should have muted you all. Thank you very much. I will keep checking to see if people are in the waiting room, but we are all here ready to go. So thank you and welcome everyone. We are recording this session for those who have already asked for that. They're struggling to be here today. So thank you for coming along. And firstly, I'd like to welcome our panel. Of course, the panel today, I'll bring them up on screen now. Obviously myself, to Justin Smith from Central Queensland, Kelly Berger from Victoria, Troy Dowdle from South Australia, Kerry Selby from Canberra, Peter Daly from Victoria. We have got accountants, financial advisors and bookkeepers very well represented today with, of course, Peter Daly and Kelly Berger, both representing national businesses or associations in relation to, or member services in relation to those two professions, and some award-winning accountants on the session today. Incredibly hot topic, this one. How do we provide value during COVID-19? Great challenge ahead, and that will be a question we're going to open up to in a moment. But just to share the agenda with you on screen, there's some key things, aren't there? We've got to make sure that we all don't go broke ourselves. Number one, we want to give guidance to clients in need that are in, experiencing drastic change and some financial hardship. We want to master our time management remotely as well to prioritise our work effectively. We've got to learn how to charge recoverable time, not fall into advice potholes where you can't recover the time spent. Many of us have already fallen for that, haven't we, in this current crisis and or pandemic, we should call it. And then generating new clients to de-risk yourselves and replace the ones that who either leave you or may go broke. And there's some real threats here. I know that some of our panellists will speak about that today as well. So back to the panel to kick us off. And we may go in the order that we can see there, just so our panellists can prepare. And they know that Kelly, you're following Justin, Troy's following Kelly, Kerry's following Troy, and Peter's following Kerry. Okay, so that's fantastic. So we might kick off with Justin, and you're now good to go. I'll unmute you from here. That way we won't both keep you muted. So Justin, what are the key issues for you at the moment, and what do you think is happening? What are the key issues as you see them for the accounting profession?
Hi everyone. Look, I think the biggest issue, especially for those that aren't on sort of ongoing cash flow agreements with clients, is really getting on top of your debtors and just start to look at reining that and get movement on those debtors. People will take the opportunity while you're distracted. They will use you as a bank. So getting on top of debtors and looking at all your other cash flow things, just talk to your banks. Talk to your staff about cancelling sort of time and lose systems, just really start and tighten up so that you can build capacity, financial capacity to get through the servicing time frame of this next 6 months just for your own internal clients. So.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Justin. And I think I heard you say in our preparation just a few moments ago, the packaging and pricing is something that's concerning you at the moment.
Yeah, so I guess like every accountant, we've been bombarded with emails and phone calls every time the ATO releases a little bit of information. We're finding ourselves going around in circles. We've decided just to basically start communicating that the systems are yet to be built and that we are looking at providing, providing certainty around the costings of some of these things and developing a menu of pricing. Whether the pricing is right or wrong otherwise, we don't know yet. providing just to avoid the issue of getting work done and then having to fight for a fee. And getting clients to make decisions. Do they want help or don't they want help?
Yeah, yeah, and it's challenging times because we've got to toughen up, don't we? And be fairly pragmatic in clarifying some of that up front. Yeah. Kelly, we'll pick you up in just a moment.
Yeah.
We've got hundreds of people on here. Kelly, when you're ready.
Hi guys. So what we're seeing, obviously in the bookkeeping community, is there's a lot of clarifying that needs to be done around the JobKeeper, because we are getting slammed by our clients who are in all different scenarios and situations that the FAQs haven't come up against. So trying to determine, whether our client is eligible or not eligible, even talking to the accountants, like a lot of them can't tell us if the client is or is not eligible. So still trying to figure out what's going on there. So like today, I think over the last 28 days, our support group has jumped to like 1,200 posts and 13,000 comments and 20 odd thousand reactions. So it's really intense in there at the moment, trying to figure out what the hell's going on with this JobKeeper, and be able to get that information out to our clients. Now, something that I've found, and I've been very proactive with my clients ever since the beginning, is that I've been emailing them saying, yes, I understand this was released today. Please let us get some time to get our heads around the legislation, around the rules, around the legalities. I can't give you any information right now, but as soon as I've got anything concrete, I will update you. So please leave it with me. And I've found that a lot of clients are not bothering me so much because I am proactive like that. And I am sending them an email almost every 3 to 4 days saying, yep, this is still in the works. Please bear with us. We're just getting more information now. And I need to figure out what applies to you and whether we need to get your accountant involved or financial planner involved or anything like that. So it's all about, keeping on the proactive, and especially with the bookkeepers as well, trying to get them the information that they need, as quickly as we can. So yeah, at the moment it's just about keeping an information flow for all our clients, and as a lot of you will see, I created a spreadsheet bringing all the fact sheets and all the FAQs and everything that I could find into the one spreadsheet. So it was much easier to just go tab and try and find all the information rather than having to go here and there and there and there and there 1,000 times. So that's been really helpful as well. But yeah, our clients are just screaming for information, especially about the JobKeeper, and so are our bookkeepers.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. And what I heard you saying there, very importantly, was the JobKeeper clarification that there's a huge amount yet to come. And and when some of you already know that we started building an automated workflow and communication portal. I think Kerry last week helped us demonstrate that. She was one of the pilot sites for that. And one of the interesting things some accountants and advisors, bookkeepers were saying to us late last week, oh, look, I've already been communicating stuff to my clients. And we keep saying to them, yes, but how much more do you think is about to come? And it just keeps flowing. It just keeps coming. And it's just, and I hear that it's quite exhausting. Thank you, Kelly. The other thing I heard that the JobKeeper clarification, FAQs are just not delivering at the moment. There's so much unanswered, as we know.
Yep.
But what you said that's very important for our viewers today is the information flow. The more systemized and proactive you can be, however you choose to make that happen, the more the clients are accepting that you're working with what you've got as well. And rather than them guessing and being in the dark. And I think any advisor, whether you're a bookkeeper, financial planner, accountant, even mortgage broker, anybody that is head in the sand and not taking that approach is going to be inundated, and that becomes very difficult to attend to.
And I've also found that a lot of the people that I'm talking to on Facebook, people that I've interacted with before that are not my clients, have come to me and said, I need information on this because my bookkeeper's got no idea, my accountant's got no idea. So I'm including them in my email updates because they're not getting anything from who they are. So, you know, it's just a case of you've got to be proactive in this or you're going to lose your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And Troy was talking about that earlier today with myself prior to this session as well. The lack of proactivity is a massive threat to all of us as professionals if we sit on our hands and, you know, wait for the world to change. So that's a segue, Troy, as well. Thanks, Kelly.
No worries.
Back to all of you before we wrap up as well with some key insights. Troy, when you're ready, mate, I'll unmute you from here. There you go.
Very good. Thanks, JP. Look, the biggest challenges I think we've got right now is as accountants and business owners. I think we've got to be really focused, and I think we've got to be prepared. Or if we're not prepared, then we've got to get prepared. So what I mean by that is that if you remember back 3 weeks ago when we had our first webinar, when the cash flow boost was first released, you know, we spent days, you know, 15-hour days preparing, trying to be proactive and think about, you know, tax strategies we can do to maximise the best outcomes for all of our clients collectively. Then we found out, you know, 3 or 4 days later, we got handcuffs put on us by accounting bodies, tax agent board, so on and so on. So we were fairly restricted in what we could do. Not that we got flat tires after that, but then we were waiting for the JobKeepers legislation to be passed, and it was right on the eve of Easter. So I think a lot of us practitioners, me included, was that I thought, well, bugger this, I'm going to go away and have a rest over Easter, and I'm going to wake up Tuesday morning, and a lot of this stuff is going to be presented where the industry leaders and accounting bodies and so forth are going to do a lot of the legwork for us. Well, that hasn't happened. I see NTAA have just released their paper in the last half hour, which I haven't read. So what that's, you know, the realisation I've had to come to in the last 48 hours is, you know, I think as business owners, firstly, before accountants, we've got to take, well, this is a stance I'm going to take, is bugger everybody else. We've got to get our house in order, and we've got to be prepared and not just sit back and wait for everybody else to do the things that we should be doing. So, and that's an extension of what Kelly was saying. We've got to be proactive and not reactive. So, you know, everyone says we're in this together, and, you know, we don't know when it's going to come out the other side. But as I said to you last night, JP, is that my concern is that we've had a lot of discussions with a number of our clients, and we've been afforded a little bit of a luxury of a time lag to say, look, you know, we're not really sure what's, you know, about to be released as far as legislation goes, but we'll get back to you. And these are not 5-minute discussions; these are 20-minute discussions we're having with business clients. And the time, the clock's not ticking; it's ticking for us, but we're not recovering that revenue. So I'm concerned now that window is going to shut because, you know, when it was first released, the JobKeeper was going to be backdated to the 1st of March. It's not, it's March 30. So now I've got to go and have those discussions with a lot of other people. So we can't, I'm concerned that me and the rest of our team are going to be having these discussions. We'll get back to you by the end of the week. I think clients are going to get really, there's going to be a lot of more anxiety than what they're experiencing now. They want to see some action from us. So I think as an industry, it still comes back to 2 things. We've got to be proactive, and we've got to be prepared. If we're not prepared, then we're at risk of losing our A-grade clients, you know, just as much as we are our Z-class clients. So, so I'm really bullish now that we've got to get off our backside and get organised. So, look, that goes to a whole bunch of things like, you know, productising. How do we go collectively across our client group? We've got 380 plus business clients. You know, do we sit down with them? You know, I cracked the shits with someone the other day. I said, mate, you're one of 380. And you're a small business, but you're as important as anybody else in that client base. Once they understand that, he goes, well, crikey, you know, then perhaps I'll just get off the phone and you'll get back to me when I can. So, you know, do we reach out to our clients and say, there's a big number of clients that we've got to talk to. How do we communicate? As a business, we've been terrible at group emailing to a number of businesses. So, you know, thankfully, you know, it comes back to your communication portal that you guys have designed. that's going to give us a big leg up in how we get and touch all of our clients. Now, it might not be a specific message that's going to cover totally their business, but it will cover off on a number of things that, hey, we have got these measures in place. We've got a system and a process on how we can get to you. That's going to include pricing. It's going to include prioritising what's important for you. So at least we can then track through MailChimp or whatever other systems that you guys can help us with, because we're then starting to use a system or develop a system that we can roll out across our client base. And then with social media and all these other things, mitigating our risk of losing clients that by going broke or whatever. There can be some more leads that we can pick up new clients, because what we do know is that across our industry, there's going to be a lot of accountants who will sit with their head in the sand and not be able to know what to do or go to. So their clients will get frustrated, and they're in the open marketplace for us to pick up new clients.
Yeah, that's some interesting and provocative, but I think very real issues for all of the professional disciplines, not just accounting. I think, and in fact, Peter Daly will no doubt comment upon that with some remarkable cold hard truths about what the advice profession is experiencing right now, which is I think indicative of what's coming for accountants and bookkeepers as well, because the advice profession is probably getting the first wave of that client reaction. Okay, and so I do agree with the concerns about the risk of losing clients through a lack, if you are not deemed to be timely in your proactivity, because it's in their eyes, not yours, correct? That's the big issue. And I think client anxiety is something that is probably a little misunderstood at the moment. Keith, forgive me, Keith, I don't have your surname in your identity, but Keith's made a comment to me, and thanks for the private comment too. It makes it easy for me to administer that. Keith said he's already got clients receiving the JobKeeper payments from their employers. And Keith, my reply to you privately, but now for the group, is that your quality clients that have got organised, Keith, rather than government assistance? Because from most of the dialogue I've had in preparation for today with our panellists, is that we're not necessarily going to physically trigger any financial flow until early May at this point in terms of the JobKeeper payments. Panellists, do you agree with me in that regard? Yeah, Kelly and then Kerry.
So what I'm understanding from a whole heap of the legislation and the webinar that we ran 2 days ago is that employers are supposed to be paying their staff now. They are not allowed to withhold that amount. So they're not allowed to pay a $0 at this time during this month. So they have to be paying them. Now, whether it's the full $1,500 or not, I don't know, but from my understanding is that employers, to be eligible for the JobKeeper, need to be paying their staff their wages all the way through this month.
Mm.
And whether they do that through, there's talk from the ATO saying go and get a cash flow loan, and cash flow loan people are taking that on board, that they're eligible for the JobKeeper and that they're basing it on the JobKeeper. But they're also not giving us information as to, well, what if they're not actually eligible for the JobKeeper? What actually happens to those loans? So there's again a lot of misconceptions and non-understanding of what's actually required right now to be eligible for JobKeeper.
Yeah, and we're still yet to formally hear in the first pass through our panel from Kerry and Peter in this regard. Yep. However, just on that point, I'm probably safe to go out on a limb here and take a bit of a risk in terms of my brand with the peak bodies, but I'm really disappointed. I'm very proud of the effort of the government, and you can see some people aren't sleeping much. You can tell just how exhausted they are. But there's a lack of pragmatism flowing from our magnificent announcements that keep coming out of state and federal levels. Yep. And every single time there's an announcement made, there's been zero consideration of the legitimate flow to the end recipient that it's been designed to achieve. And I'm very, very concerned that our peak bodies. Troy was very polite when he referenced those a moment ago, but the fact is none of the peak bodies have shown any kahunas and spoken about this with any concern for the common person out there that's at the end of the stick, right? And I think one of you, and I won't name who it was, but one of you actually said offline earlier, even our panellists are actually saying, so what, I've got to pay my employees for what, 5, 6, 7 weeks, little unsure and just kill all of my cash in the theory that I'm going to get these JobKeeper refunds, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a huge amount of uncertainty there. And I think when we get to the back half of this, from about 1:40 for the next sort of 10 minutes or so, we're going to talk more constructively about a game plan for you attending this webinar today. Because in fact, there's many other things you've got to now consider and take more seriously than this beautiful intention that we're not seeing headway through it at the moment.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, thanks, Kelly. Kerry, if you're right to go, you should be unmuted in just a moment. Let's try that again. Yep. Thanks, Kerry.
Yeah, you do, as an employer, you do need to be paying the JobKeeper now. And the JobKeeper eligibility is once you've met the eligibility you're in, you don't need to keep maintaining that eligibility. I think we need to assume that the government wants us in the system because it takes all of those staff out of Centrelink and makes us the Centrelink surrogate for them. So we're probably going to find that whatever rules they come up with, we're probably going to fit in if we're meeting that decline in income. So I get the stress. I completely understand it. My clients are in the same boat. You know, do you pay your staff, especially those that you've got to go and pay above what they're normally earning in the hope that you're going to get that refunded? The other one that we worked with a client on last week had a number of clients that were on different visas and so are ineligible, but that took quite some time to work out which visas they were all on and actually work out whether they were in or out. And the other thing was that we had some staff that had maximum hours and income that they can earn because they're receiving Centrelink benefits for other things like disabled children and things like that. So we don't have a choice. Once the employer goes through JobKeeper, they have to pay all eligible staff the minimum of $1,500, regardless of what that does to their Centrelink benefits. And I can't see anything that says that their Centrelink benefits will be, there'll be concessions and things on that so they still get it. So, you know, they've given their staff member a $400 a fortnight pay rise to meet the JobKeeper and cost them more than that in their healthcare card.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. Just on that, and as we're working through the panel as well, was there anything else you'd like to comment from an opening remarks point of view in terms of
Absolutely.
your biggest frustrations, and where are they?
We're maintaining a lot of communication with our clients. We're using email, we're using Zoom meetings, and we're using our website. So it's really crude, it's basic. I've asked for concessions on my spelling and grammar because I just need to get the information up there. And what we've done is some basic information at the top, and then at the bottom of it, we've just got updates and just keeping at the top of that, the latest update. So I did an update just before we came in here, and I've just put the 15th of the 4th and put some comments in there. And then, you know, there's updates from yesterday and things like that. So clients can see how productive and how proactive we are being and keeping them up to date. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just needs to be there so they know that you love them. I think it's incredibly important that our CRM databases are up to date. I've spoken to a couple of practitioners who wouldn't be able to pull out a list of their clients and their email addresses to send a bulk email address out. Didn't understand the concept of using the BCC in that email address. Don't send an email out to everybody that every client can then see every other client that's in your list. That's just not appropriate. Use your BCC, but get your CRM, your Handysoft, your XO, your MYOB, whatever you're using, and get it in such a way that you can pull out a list of your clients and their email addresses. Most of the programs allow you to build a report that does that quite easy. Export it to Excel, copy that column into your BCC in your Outlook, and off goes your email.
Yeah,
and easy. You need to be on top of it.
Yeah, and just on that, well done, Kerry, too, helping us with some of the beta testing last week. That's coming up on the screen now. We'll come back to this portal and the exhausting amount of work it's been to get it live and get it working for each of you, but it's now finally at that point, which is terrific. We'll come back to that towards the end. Thanks,
Yeah.
Kerry. That's fantastic.
Another comment, sorry, John.
Yes, please. Yeah, sure.
Is when it first all hit, I just started making phone calls with clients, assuming that they were going to pay me for that time, et cetera, booking them, whether it was phone or Zoom. And after a little while, I realised that this wasn't working. I needed to prioritise, and I got one of my team ringing all those people that were making inquiries and a couple of clients that I knew I needed to talk to, and booked them a time and set a price with them right from then. When that's happened, not a single one of those clients has complained about the fee. They've accepted it. Some of them have kind of gone, oh yeah, that makes sense. And they've all agreed to the fee. They've all asked for the invoice when we didn't send it out quick enough. And most of them have now paid. The ones that were earlier on are the ones that have whinged about it. And one of them got a fee for $176 for a short conversation and sent me a 3-page whinge.
Yeah.
Where do you think they're going to fit in my priorities after that?
They're not, first class, business class, cattle class, or out the back.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where they fit. And another one that did object, and when I sent back a reply that said, listen, I'm going to assume that you're coming from a place of fear and not an objection to the fee, because I know that I gave you a lot of value in that. And they've come right back and said, I'm so sorry, you're right. I really did just react out of fee. Can I make an arrangement with you to pay that off? And that's fine with me. They've accepted the fee and they'll pay it. But every single person that we've said to, this is the fee, have accepted it very, very graciously. So
well done. Yeah, and that was a great, and the new term that we all need to understand that, and I'm going to acknowledge Simon Nuttall, great feedback about everyone's a Facebook troll, everyone's an expert on the JobKeeper advice all of a sudden, internet marketers, online business coaches, all sorts of people are jumping on social media and threatening to take your clients away from you with a whole bunch of BS. And even Justin, you mentioned privately last week, you had a national franchise group, you had the national appointed accountant pitching a whole bunch of rubbish to each individual franchisee. So that just shows you how ridiculous this market is going to become. There's going to be some hysteria, and we have to very, very calmly and very intelligently systemize our communication to our existing clients. And in theory, we're already seeing evidence. Damien Moffrey, one of our beta testers last week of our communication packs, has picked up a $15,000 client from proactive communication last week, which is pretty exciting. So, and of course, Peter, if you could help us through the first pass now, and you should be about to unmute it now.
I think I'm unmuted.
Yes.
Thank you, John. I think the key words have been thrown around by just about everybody on the panel so far, and that's proactive communication. And certainly that would be what we'd encourage. Those of us that worked through and succeeded with the GFC would know that that was the way to go. Getting out and staying in touch with your client, using every opportunity possible, and sending out something that's going to be valuable. And the real focus there was on valuable communication as well, because there's, as you just said, there's a lot of miscommunication circulating. Earlier on, John, you mentioned some of the experiences that our group is going through right now. And certainly what we are experiencing for the clients, that is policy cancellations, what we refer to as clawbacks, premiums and commissions that have been paid in the past that can now be clawed back over a 2-year period. So it's not only existing, but past work that is going to come home and potentially hurt people's, and particularly their cash flows right now. We are seeing business stagnation, i.e. clients cancelling meetings, new business meetings and the like. And so, what do we do to get that going? There's investment volatility, and there's this fear factor that clients are experiencing across the market. What do they do? We've seen a flight to cash. And is this the right time to do that? And I think most of us know the answer to that one. And so there's considerable client concern. So what are we doing to address that? And from our side, I think, John, what you've done with this particular group and the communication that you've been sending out, which we in turn have been sending out to our advisors and mortgage brokers is a testimony to the whole exercise. And that in turn has been sent around to clients. But in addition to that, some of the things that you've been talking about is getting out there. Yesterday, I was dealing with a small business. And what we sat down and did, which I'm sure every single one of you are doing or are about to do, is just sitting down and going through the forecasts as to where do we go from here. How do we change what we're doing, and getting them to address the current problem and looking at the future as to where they're going to be, both in terms of budgeting for this year and what changes are going to happen, and then forecasting for next year. And so we've done that. And it's amazing, as we came through that exercise yesterday, how they responded in a completely different way. And I'm sure every single one of you are having the same experiences. So really it's getting out there, looking at modeling, talking about the stimuluses and how it might apply to themselves, assisting them with whatever financing they can do. Those of in the mortgage broking market, this is a great opportunity to go and review some of those things. So there's lots of those opportunities if we can just move people from where they are in the negative and focus on the positives. And in addition to that, just talking to some of my own advisors, marketing opportunities that are out there. And I heard what you said just before was my opportunity, John, and that is people going out there and targeting a franchise group or whatever. But there are certainly, the essential services, the teaching community and others that need services right now, particularly life insurance. And given that mortality rate is higher than anywhere else, the opportunity to talk to them about how we collectively can cater to their needs. So there's lots of that opportunity. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll hand it back, and that is through the GFC, I found that your C and D clients became your bread and butter. So whatever you do, don't forget the C's and D's, because your A's and B's may disappear, but your C's and D's will be there. And many companies survived on the back of those C and D's. So don't forget them.
Yeah, excellent point, Peter. And something that we struggle with at the moment, don't we? The feedback is that so many people are on this call, so many professionals are trying to get to every client one at a time. If you get into a reactionary model, that's very difficult to do if you're waiting, waiting on their response, whereas being proactive is certainly the key. And I wanted to come back to that comment I only touched on a moment ago from Simon Nuttall. So certainly the real issue is that there is a lot, the internet traffic, social media traffic has exploded exponentially in terms of the average number of posts or social media searches per day is up 800% in a month. But that's not necessarily paid advertising. Here's the good news. And what starts as of tomorrow and for the coming weeks is some proactive strategy that we will be helping you and mentoring you to roll out for yourselves, those that want to de-risk themselves a bit. And that is that the ROI that we've got one of our social media experts who's not on this call today, but he will be on next week. The ROI on social media is getting a 5 times to 1 return compared to only 5 or 6 weeks ago, so that there's infinitely more return. There's less paid dollars being spent on social media at the moment, but the handheld activity, so people like you and I, people that are at home, the amount of times they're picking up their device and checking social media today is up 500% in a month. So you can think that through. You can understand the realities of that in between quick breaks and everything else. All right, so to summarise some of the key points now that we promised you and work through those, I'm going to quickly just recall here that what we spoke about, kicking off from Justin through to Peter, JobKeeper clarification, and it's just not clear enough at this point in time. We feel like we're going to have to cash flow many businesses perilously in good faith. Keith, who's on this call, has said to me that he was very fortunate to get some of his clients through the JobKeeper methodology quickly. and they jumped in quickly and did already and have actually received some benefit, but unfortunately that's a unique methodology. We will research that and speak with Keith offline and report back to you in our next session next week, if not before, if there's some relevancy and currency to that still being applicable now around JobKeeper Q&A and actually accessing that stuff in the short term. The other issue, of course, was that I'm hearing is that the year-end tax planning, that's upon us. That's going to be right around the corner. So here, I think this is we're heading into. Don't think we've been in the busiest period of our chaotic framework here of the last month or so. It's coming. It's going to get even more challenging in terms of workload, and we must get our communication methodologies right. So having to be proactive there, the information flow to clients, database and CRM, very important, and we'll show you a couple of examples of simple applications that can reduce your stress in that regard. And there will be some weekly training on sales, packaging, consulting, getting paid for your time. That all starts next week. And of course, prioritising your time and setting the price up front as well. Okay, C's and D clients, not to lose sight of those. All right. And by the way, I lost a couple of $1 million during the GFC or the year of and the few years after. And you need to be a little bit match fit to understand what you're dealing with, that's for sure. Let me close that down for now and come back to, so how do we make sure we're not going to go broke ourselves? That's quite important, isn't it? Okay. So what we've really got to understand here is that I think Troy from the panel said this earlier, is that he's starting to think even more so as a business owner than as an accountant, and thinking about the fact that he's got to run a business, he's got to protect the downside, he's got to protect the potential risk of even A-class clients, not just any client in that regard. And so the way you're structuring your time, Kerry's tips on pre-qualifying up front, the expectation of a fee-paying discussion or consult, very, very important. So practical tips are going to be extremely important for all of the professional disciplines that on this particular call today. Giving guidance to clients in need. Remember that some of you will find yourselves having bad days where you're stuck on a few calls back to back. You've got to actually predetermine the time and educate your team members, if you've got team members, how many hours a week or hours per day, and what are those hours of the day that you'll give some crisis guidance to your clients, and quarantine that time, pardon the pun, quarantine that time for giving guidance to clients in need. Don't make yourself an open book all day. It will not work for you. You will not recover most of that time. Okay, mastering your time management remotely. Some of you have been struggling. We've taken a lot of private coaching calls about how to do this, and a lot of you are not necessarily embracing technology. So we will record, we'll offer a separate webinar or two on that, and we'll record it so that even if you can't make it, you'll get access to that. There are so many simple apps that you can use now around mastering your time effectively. So we'll give you more tips on those rather than load you up in this particular session. But Microsoft Teams, WhatsApp, Slack, Asana, there are so many more there that you can use. Charging recoverable time. We've had some great examples today, haven't we, in charging recoverable time, in getting you to think through pre-qualifying with your clients, but also understanding who your clients are. Just confirming, Bill, I think we've got Bill Sutton, who's been one of our expert panelists and will be again possibly next week. We may get that insight from Bill that he and I spoke about earlier today before we wrap up today on the realities of bank funding. And Bill's made a private call to me that's pretty interesting there and is not necessarily going to excite too many of you, I don't believe, but it's the truth and we'll have to think about it. Okay. And again, charging recoverable time is, again, you've got to plan that. You've actually got to schedule and plan your time and talk to your team about it, re-educate them every day about what they have to do. You've got to give them micro direction. Luckily for many of these people on the call that have been through our best practice programs on daily time management principles and productivity, you understand some of those. If you need more help, you just need to reach out and let us know. We've got plenty of content there to help you with. Not falling into the advice pothole. So I think very early on, many of us were taking calls, addressing clients and not seeing an ROI, struggling to invoice for that. Kerry got a 3-page letter for a $170 bill. these things are going to continue if you don't toughen up and just talk up front, on commercial terms with your clients. Generating new clients, of course, is a real issue right now. But as Peter Daly said, it's actually a remarkable opportunity. And as Troy is starting to mention, Justin's starting to mention, we are starting to see that there is so much followship that's occurring on social media that it's unlikely that you can really afford to sit still. You will either gain clients or lose them. Chances are you'll probably lose them whether you gain them or not. So you're going to have to think about that. The chances are you will lose some clients. Some are going to go broke, some already have. But on top of that, what's also going to happen is that if you're not proactively looking to replenish clients, you're also not making enough noise to satisfy your own clients. And that's the real issue here. As Simon Nuttall rightfully said, it's the internet trolls, it's the false promises, it's the misdirection, and people that are bold enough and desperate enough to do that to attract attention to their value proposition, whether it's not valuable or not, or it is. The reality is that they're your clients at risk to all of that because they're picking up their phones 500% more than they were 4 weeks ago. So if you're not present and you're not integrating that in your communication package, your entire client base is at threat or at risk of that. Okay, so some of you got started last week with this, and how do we de-risk you in that regard? So congratulations, Kerry, Simon Manning and Jody at Phillip Island, Arthur, who's the one you can see here, all involved in the beta testing. John Gowing have gone live with essentially, which is a globally created portal that can be then branded and customized for every one of you. And then what is also exciting is you can see here the lead capture. As Kerry was talking about CRM, we've actually created an inbuilt CRM to capture all those leads, which is really exciting. And so basically what's happening is as your client goes through that particular portal or your prospect and accesses the relevant documents that they need that are also populated with your logo and contact details, they then are automatically added to your database as well. One of the things that we're just building now is to protect you, but also possibly to acquire some clients as well, is we're creating relative, currency, COVID-19 relative social media content for you as well. So that's available as of, I think, as of late this week, which is exciting. And we'll share how you can get access to that as well. So the communication portal packages, what's happening there is I promised you last week that we would come up with something that is to suit your budget, no matter how big or small your current practice is as a bookkeeper, accountant, financial advisor, or mortgage broker. And so we have one package, which is to dominate the region. So somebody like Troy that says he wants to get on the front foot, or Justin Smith, and go out and acquire clients, there's something pretty fabulous that is available there. For those that simply like Kerry Dickman, Kerry Selby, and Arthur and so on, to simply de-risk yourselves and potentially still acquire a few clients, get your branded portal. If you're very cash poor at the moment, there's a one-time download with your own brand. That is very, very affordable, and a ridiculous $49 best practice branded copy that you can just spend $49 and get 32 different state-based and federal-based packages out to your clients. Why is there 32? Because there's 4 different federal packages and they all vary at a state level. There's 8 state variations of those. So you can email those inquiries through to us, team@bpgrp.com.au. We'll share that with you. You've probably already got that in the follow-up. I want to go back to the panel now for some early commentary on what we've heard and discussed today. There's also a couple of important comments from the group, from the attendees that I'll refer to in a moment. Just in order, Justin, you've actually booked your own copy of that portal we just showed you there. That should go live tomorrow. Kerry's has gone live on the weekend. It was live, but wasn't finished last week. Beta test. Simon and Jody's went live on Saturday as well, I believe, and so on. Can we just hear from you? Why have you done that? What's the intention behind you choosing to communicate ideally the majority of the time that way? Justin?
Yeah, I think it's just to avoid that pothole, or the start of that pothole advice. Roadways that you're building, but you're not necessarily really building any value to start with. So, pushing clients, and I guess it's a good opportunity to get a few likes on your Facebook page. If clients aren't reacting enough, you can sort of push them that way. They'll start that social media journey with yourself and your business, and they get some initial value out of it. And then from there, I guess they'll do their own bit of a self-assessment, and then you can kind of follow it up with some productization around what their immediate issues are, as opposed to trying to work it out in email and all this sort of stuff. So,
yeah, thank you. And Kelly, for those of you that are not part of our COVID-19 Facebook group, please make sure you inquire about that, and we'll get you in there. We shared Kelly Berger's Excel spreadsheet in there last night that she's referred to today. So that's a complimentary resource for you, and well done, Kelly. That's a great resource, so great job there. So Kerry, just your rationale and justification for going the portal approach. What's over to you?
The conversations I've had with clients that sort of knew nothing and, were having their COVID calls with me, was nowhere near as valuable as those that knew a little bit about it. So if I could give those clients a little bit of information before we had a conversation, the conversation that we had so much more value, was much more practical for them, and they just had a better grasp of what was going on and the limitations of what we actually had now. So it wasn't that I was being obstinate or difficult or overwhelmed or anything. We don't have the information yet, and that was very clear to them. So that's been very valuable. And I'm quite impressed with how many people have taken it up, given that it was the Easter weekend, and hopefully they were off at home with their families, not out and about, but they still took the time to sign up for that. Yeah,
well done. And look, most importantly, as we continue to create the content for you in terms of updating the downloadable packages, stimulus package information every 48 hours, we'll also be creating those summary emails that you can send out to your entire database as well, that globally builds your brand and encourages your clients to onboard it to their community, which may allow you to gain some new clients into the CRM through that as well, importantly. All right.
Loyalty from your existing clients.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. Protecting the downside, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well done. So a great question from Arthur. What's the general consensus for COVID-19 consulting and advisory services, and what's the fee range that could be considered by our attendees today in charging a fee for service around the JobKeeper application, possibly other applications, banking and finance? Bill Sutton, Troy and myself have got a special panel we're putting together to look into the funding application methodologies that we think that are really going to be a challenge en masse to get through to the banks. So that's not on today's call. That might be next week, but we'll be talking about that ASAP. But what are some of the consulting products and services? This is something that our panel is aware of, and I can share with all of you now. Over the next 4 weeks, and in fact for the next 6 weeks, we'll be running private group-based, so you'll have to subscribe to that. It'll be extremely low cost, just cost recovery for us for time and effort. But we're going to run a whole series of mentoring, support, and packaging programs for you. Obviously, best practice members, you're in the box seat. That's complimentary for you. But you'll see on the screen now, this is some of the content that Troy Dowdle, Justin Smith, myself, Peter Daly. There's a whole bunch of private dialogue. Kelly Berger as well, Kerry. There's a whole bunch of dialogue that we're talking about is the new paradigm for you. And that is having a consultative approach to professional services. And what we understand is whilst many of you have the self-confidence and the knowledge to offer these and deliver these, you're concerned about creating value-based packages or packaging up and pricing up these services as per Arthur's question just a moment ago. on the run and rolling them out immediately. So starting next week, there will be a weekly 1-hour training session available to you. We'll give you some introductory content, absolutely complimentary, so you can evaluate that. As I said, it'll be extremely low cost, but there'll also be, for those who want it, there'll be additional private mentoring and support and ongoing support groups as well on how to roll this stuff out, add value, charge for your time, sustain your own businesses and survive, of course, but also for those who want to grow, there'll be some sales training as well on how to get the expectations right. And, you know, Kerry's a great, dare I say, ambassador for some of this, because Kerry's been working with us for the last couple of years, and here she is pre-qualifying her clients up front and locking in that paid consulting and paid advice, right? And that's what it's all about. We think you're probably going to need some more sophistication around that. I'm just going to check to see if Bill Sutton is with us. Give me a second, Bill, as I toggle through the many pages of attendees today. I've just unmuted you, Bill. Can we just test that?
Yeah, John, I'm here. Can you pick me up?
Excellent, mate. Fantastic. So, are you comfortable to give that frank and honest, off the record conversation that you and I had, at least some sort of interpretation of that, please, about what you're learning about the bank's reality at the moment?
Yeah, so thanks. Look, John and I had a conversation this morning, and as you've all seen, the JobKeeper programs, what appears to be is that businesses need to self-fund that. Now, if you're talking 8, 10, 12, 14 employees at $750 per month, when your income's dropped by half, or you don't have any income, well, ultimately, how does a business fund that, other than retain earnings, drawing lines of credit down from their mortgages, overdrafts, if they have them? But in the main, as we know, lots of small businesses don't have access to funding, and they don't have access to lines of and credits. If you put yourself in the bank shoes, over the last 5 days, they've probably had the amount of inbound calls that they've had within 12 months, and they've had to adapt teams and build teams that work from home, as many of us are here. So the issue will be that even if we can find a way to fund these, which there's many places out there that actually do it, it's how fast a bank can get through the volume of applications and the documentations. And if you think about the window for the JobKeeper, I suppose program, it's funding of salaries for a 4 to 6 week period. So in the main, there'll be loans of $5,000 to 40, 50, 60 grand. But how do you process the plethora of small business loan applications and actually document those within a time frame of sort of 2-3 weeks that gets everyone paid, so that the small business can be reimbursed for those out-of-pocket expenses? So those are the dilemmas that we'll try and work through over the next few days for you.
Thanks, Bill. And many of you, I'm sure, will be relieved to know that that Bill and Troy have already put their hands up and committed to a bit of an offline task force on this, because we think that there may be some really important systemisation and distribution that the banks are even missing, that, you know, accountants, advisors, bookkeepers could actually play an extremely valuable role in pre-packaging up those applications to be more readily reviewed and accepted if endorsed by their professional advisors, as opposed to, you know, desperate applications coming through directly, the call centres of the banks being smashed by SMEs. That's just not going to lead to success. So for the banks either. So we think that this particular body, accountants, advisors and bookkeepers, could play a massive role in helping to streamline the application process. Because again, the big disappointment that when I go out on a limb is that I see the pollies thinking they've done the right thing, but, you know, the banks, I'm telling you now, I've had a private conversation in the last 7 days with a senior executive of one of the big four, and they've actually said to me, John, I can't tell you this, so you can't brand this, but the reality is we're very nervous to lend right now. So, you know, how does that back up the 50 cents in the dollar government-backed guarantee, that's just rubbish. You know, like there's a mid-level executive quandary in play here between what's the big boys are promising and big boys and girls are promising the politicians and what's actually happening behind the scenes. So there's a lot of work for us to be done, and I think that much more anxiety than we've experienced is ahead of us in the professional services game. All right, so same issue for government loans up to 250K. Applications are going to be a big issue, and I think that accountants, bookkeepers, financial advisors could play a valuable role in charging very affordable fees to their clients to prepare them for those applications, and also helping to make an assessment. Let's call it the 80-20 rule, if you like, where if it's going to take a major bank 4 to 6 weeks to sit on credit to get an approval of the 250K, and we don't even affect that process until 3, 4, 5 weeks from now. And as a result of that, what you've also got is you've now got an anxious client who's running out of cash. They're in a downturn. None of the 30% down metrics and JobKeeper metrics are even going to freaking matter at that point, right? We're just going to have anarchy on our hands in 4 to 6 weeks from now. So there's a lot of stuff that we've got to communicate very proactively to our clients. We've got to systemize it. We've got to get them self-administering some of the content back to you. That's critical, because your workloads will simply grow exponentially and they'll be unmanageable. So we're going to have to help you systemize how you get the data in the first place, and how, as Kerry very intelligently said, how you educate your clients to behave in accordance with a system and workflow that'll actually work for you, the professional advisors. That's going to be critical in this mechanism. So stay tuned. As I said, weekly trainings will be starting middle of the week as of next week. We'll be announcing those in the next 48 hours. Anybody that wants to get into that, that portal platform and systemize their communication, just simply send us an email there. You've got it, and I'll put it in the chat box for everyone as well. You'll see that coming through in just a moment on the chat box. And we'll follow you up ASAP. And thank you very much to our panellists, to Justin Smith, to Kelly Berger, to Troy Dowdle, Kerry Selby, and of course, Peter Daly. Thanks again, everyone. Keep sharing with us. Make sure you get onto our Facebook COVID-19 group just for this the professional group to talk privately, and then invite your clients to the public one. We'll help you do that. Thanks again. We'll see you again soon.